because the devil is crossing me.
I always had an inch left. I always had some fucking wiggle room. Every time I would fuck up, there was always some wiggle. There was always a Brad Pitt on the phone.
Straight up.
There was always some, like, you know, Sundance award.
Some next project.
There was always Alma. There was always another. There was always wiggle room to get back into ego. And this time, there wasn't no wiggle room. That's why I attribute this woman with saving my life, because she destroyed any route towards that wiggle.
That's real.
It is real.
Rock fucking bottom.
Rock bottom. Bottom isn't when you experience the worst moment of your life.
Definitely
Bottom
not.
is when you change.
That's right. It's when you actually, it's when you touch it, when you smell it, when it's right on your face
Yeah,
and you feel it.
and
It's not about severity of what the thing is. It's about
it's about what you
time.
do with it once it happens.
There
So
you go.
like, once it happened, I mean, when it landed, I forgot how to breathe, you know, because the subtext of the email was, your hustle's over, you know, and I forgot how to breathe, and the next thing I did after 2 minutes of sitting there, staring at a computer screen, was I went and loaded up a gun and sat at my table and was gonna kill myself. I was out of here. I didn't know what to do anymore. Like, all my ideas had failed, and I sat there for 2 minutes thinking, where's the wiggle room? I'd already used
What's my play?
Yeah, what's the play? And there were no options. It was like there was nowhere to go. It's not like I could go outside and get a Choco Taco and chill on the, you know, people driving down the street, rolling down the window like, fuck off and die, you know? This is where I was in the early days of this shit. So I didn't even want to leave my house. And I had a woman living in my house who wasn't my wife. And I was on my way to go do some movie I didn't give a fuck about, you know, just like momentum building kind of shit, you know, movies, no intrinsic value, just like, I need something on the cards, you know, for this year. I need my 2 or 3 projects, one of these things. And I felt disconnected from all of it. And I wound up getting emails from certain dudes who, like you, were still involved in my life, even when it got ugly, you know, when it got chunky. One of those dudes was Sean Penn. And Sean's like, you need to call Brolin. And I called Brolin, and he told me he was going to this meeting online. Now, the gun is loaded. Like, I haven't left my sitting position, you know? And I wound up signing on to this meeting, and I heard one of the dudes who was speaking that night say, if you're new and you just entered, you know, you don't have everything you want right now, but you got everything you need right now. Wow. Now. And he did that for like 2 minutes. And the first minute I'm thinking, you can't spend the whole rest of your share just snapping your fingers and saying now. Like, this shit is ludicrous. And I went into this judgment, which is what my alcoholism sounds like. It sounds like criticality. It sounds like judgment. And so I'm in my judgment, like, you better say, and a gun is right here. I'm like, you better say something that's really going to get me the fuck out of where I'm at. And after 2 minutes, like, I felt like a giggle start to rise inside of me, and I felt something like presence. I stopped thinking about the email, stopped thinking about my hustle. The gun almost disappeared, and it was like I'm sitting here on this Skype call, and I'm present for the first time in my life. And I wound up writing the dude in the chat box like, hey, bro, you know, I'm on the verge. You know, I'm about to kill myself. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Call me tomorrow. Just like throwaway, you know, and I needed that. I had been enabled for so long in my life that if it was going to be me walking into this program and having a bunch of dudes pat me on the back like, hey, man, welcome home. Yeah. We're glad you're here. I'd have been out again, because then it would have been more wiggle room. Yeah. But the guy that I wound up running into was not having it. Yeah. And he said, hey, man, meet me on the beach tomorrow. And I wound up here at Tower 10, and he said, I need you to get on your knees. And I'm like, I'm not getting on my knees. He's like, cool, deuces. He started walking away. I'm thinking, oh, fuck. But it also reified this, like, you don't care. Like, you care, but not in that way. You know, you're not going to pat me on my back. And I said, okay. I was so willing at this point because I was in so much fucking pain. And he said, get on your knees. And I get on my knees. He gets on his knees with me. So right away, it's no longer like this power play. We're like collaborating in this. And he says, I need you to stop the waves. And I'm like, man, listen, this Dr. Quinn medicine woman version of this shit ain't gonna work with me. You know, like, I get how this goes. He's like, you're either gonna write what happens, or you're gonna do a bunch of shit that you don't believe in so that your life changes. Because your issue is that you need to rationalize everything. And you're out of options, son. Like, what? If not this, what? And he was right. And so I started saying, you know, stop waves. And he's like, louder, man. Stop waves. And he got up off of his knees and he started walking away. And I looked back and he's like, nah, keep going. And he's like, keep saying it again. I say, stop waves. He's like, louder, bro. They're all the way over there. You're all the way over here. Stop them waves, man. And now I'm yelling. And I'm having like an emotional it almost feels performative now. Now I'm like back in my bag, back to like the manipulating, hustling, like wiggle room
Watch
finding.
this.
Watch this. Boom. Let me, and then I'm crying and I'm stop waves. You know, I'm in the middle of like the greatest monologue of my life on this beach.
Stanley Kowalski and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, "You can stop all that," which made me like giggle. You know, I started giggling, and then he stood up and he put his hand on my left shoulder and put his hand on my right shoulder. And he said, "Welcome to AA." And it did something to me that felt like it felt like warrior shit. You know, it felt like man code, like G shit. It didn't feel like fluffy, cute shit, book reading, sitting in it felt like
You're on a mission.
Yeah, it felt purposeful. And it felt sexy, to be honest with you. Sexy in the way that listening to Kevin Vance feels sexy to a young man who feels like a boy. It felt so rooted. And it wasn't emotional. It wasn't performative. He wasn't trying to manipulate me, but it was kind of hokey and like the knights in shining armor kind of hokiness that like made me feel like a little kid again. And he said, "I need you to go home and clear out, like clear the decks." And I'm like, "Nah, man, like for me," and I don't know if you felt this way, but every woman was the one for me. There was never a two. If you liked me, you were the one. And that had to do with my insecurity and my fear. Like I didn't have there was no 2 or 3, or I was just dating like frivolously. It was always like this grand hair climbing up the super emotional, super romantic, super this fierce romance, you know, that I was searching for, desperate little boy shit. And he said, "You got to clear the decks." And I'm like, "I don't know if I can do that, man. You know, I feel like she's the one." And he's like giggling to himself, you know. This isn't my wife. My wife is not involved in my life at this point. And I got this one who's not the one who accused me of this shit, and she's just another person who's been trapped in my sphere of influence. And she's living in my house, and he's like, "Well, look, man, I'll tell you what, you know, you can keep doing it your way, or you can try some new shit, because the way that you're living, you're fucked. You're fully fucked. You're doomed," is what he said.
Doomed.
You're doomed. That was the word. And I flipped to this page. He made me flip to this doctor's opinion we got in our book. And in the doctor's opinion, or how our book starts, it mentions the word doomed. And he's like, "This isn't like another AA guy. This is a doctor telling you you're doomed if you don't figure this shit out." And he goes, to put it in perspective, if you went to Kaiser Permanente right now, and they sat you down and put your, you know, x-rayed you and put your x-ray up on a light board, and you're looking at a picture of your clavicle, and the doctor said, "Hey man, you see that gray spot just above your chest cavity? You're doomed." What would happen to you is your asshole would suck, you would fucking start sweating bullets, and you wouldn't be thinking about the job that you got to get to, or the girl you got to hold on to, or where you're going to go for Father's Day, or you immediately, your whole life would get very small, and the only rational response to that kind of information is, well, what do I do? And if I told you to staple a dog's dick to your fucking chin and walk up and down the street picking a cigarette butts, you would do it. You wouldn't ask me why or whether you believe in it or nothing. You go look for a dog, you know? And so that made sense to me. He puts me in a car. He says, "I need you to listen to this Sandy Beach tape." Now, at this point in my life, like I'm like barely hanging on. And I'm using this woman like drugs, you know. Every time I need validation, I'm with this woman, and she becomes what the mask of success that the job created for me, which kept me from like really looking at myself. She became that for me in the interim. And he's like, "You got to get rid of all of it, you know. There is no more work and no more romance for a year. You're gonna have to give me a year." And I'm thinking like, I'm not gonna be able to pull that off, you know. And right away, I'm half measuring, and this is my wiggle room. I can't. And he says, "I need you to download this tape, this Sandy Beach tape." Sandy Beach is a big speaker.